One student decided he would no longer bathe. For quite some time, this has been going on, when his fellow housemates decided to take matters into their own hands. They put him into the shower, and he protested loudly, explaining that he had a board inserted in his stomach and it would warp if he bathed. I found the most fascinating people in the world right here in Belleville. First, I was blown away that there were 3 subscriptions to the New York Times that came to Belleville. They were to your library, son Will, and Mr. John Morgan, a well-respected teacher. Now, let me tell you about some of the interesting characters around. There was Miss Jean and Miss Esther, who ran the country store, a favorite hangout place. It was heated by a pot-bellied stove that sat right in the middle of the store. The store was, and is currently known as Miss Jean's. Isn't there still Miss Jean's? Miss Jean and Miss Esther gave the biggest scoops of ice cream in the world to the Webb boys in particular. They were her favorites. Miss Esther had a husband named Bill, and everybody called him just plain Bill. They were wonderful people. There was Mr. Morgan, fabled science teacher, witty and a friend to all. He had told the father of Phil Cook that he needed to send Phil to med school, and aren't we glad he did? There was Mrs. Rosenberg. She and her husband, who had recently died when we came to town, had narrowly escaped the Nazis in Vienna. They had come from Vienna to Amsterdam to London to New York to Belleville. They were probably recruited through a teacher's agency to teach German. She was everybody's friend and had a bilingual cat who understood German. Very impressive to all the boys and me. I also met sisters Miss Mabel and Miss Annie Whiteside, natives of Belleville. I think from the beginning of Webb School they would have girls who lived in town if they were interested to become students. So these had become students, and they were both scholarly and delightful. And they were presently at Randolph-Macon Women's College when we were here. Miss Mabel, an administrator. Miss Annie, the venerable Greek and Latin teacher, and she had yearly Greek dramas. When I was first introduced to her, Miss Annie asked me, "And what languages did you take?" Having graduated from a country high school that didn't even give any languages, I said to her, "Miss Annie, not only did I not take Latin, I have never had a foreign language." And she said, "What? And you married a Webb? He must have married you for the novelty of it." I didn't. I'm just glad that I didn't know then about that cow that understood Latin. The second Webb School is in Claremont, California, near Los Angeles. It was founded in 1922 by Sonia's youngest son, Thompson Webb. He took a school that had gone out of business, and with very little money and more than enough faith in the principles of good, sound scholarship, he forged ahead. Today, the Webb School of California is a thriving institution with both a girls' school and a boys' school, and is one of the outstanding college prep schools in America. As I told you, Sonia's grandson and my husband Bob taught at both Webb schools, 8 years in Belleville and 1 year in the Webb School of California, before deciding to start a boys' school in Knoxville, his hometown. Returning from California in the summer of 1955, he found some interest in a new school and gave himself, have I skipped a page? Did I tell you about going to? Okay. Oh. Well, maybe. Okay. And both the girls' school and the boys' school is one of the outstanding college prep schools from here. Tony's grandson came back to Knoxville to start a school, and he found some interest in having that kind of school, and gave himself a deadline of August 15th to locate a place for it. His deadline dawned, and he still had no location. I remember his dejection as he went to his temporary office in his brother's church to give up his dream. George, who was a minister, had given him a corner of his office and a card table, and he said, "You can use my phone, Bob." So August 15th arrived, and I remember when he left, he was very unhappy because he hadn't found a place. And he went to the office. George was not in the office, but the phone rang, so Bob answered the phone. It was Julius Spitzer, pastor of the Sequoia Hills Presbyterian Church. And he said, "What are you doing in town, Bob?" And Bob said, I had hoped that I could start a school, but I can't find a place. He said, "Well, what do you need?" He said, "Well, I need classrooms, I need a way to feed them, I need for them to be able to play outside." And Julian thought for a minute, and he said, "Would my place do?" We thought that was providential. Now he had a place to have the school, but he didn't have any students. He had about 3.5 weeks to go. Look back to the people that he talked to listening, and they said, "Well, it's a little late now." So anyway, by the time 1 week before the school was to open, he had 2 students. So he called his Uncle Thompson, and he said, "What should I do? I've got just 2 students." He hoped Uncle Thompson would say, "Come on back to California and teach for me." Instead, he said, "Well, Bob, I take those 2 students and give them the best education you can give them." So he proceeded, and by the time school opened several days later, he had doubled his enrollment. 4. So he was off and running, and it was a happy day. And incidentally, as it was his grandfather's fate, he was housed in the basement of the church. At the time, let's see, about 3 weeks ago, the 4 boys who graduated for the first time, and they were 50-year graduates by then. There was a celebration at Webb School, and one of the boys they all spoke to the student. Actually, they were just student before they, but one spoke to the student body, and he said when he was applying for college, he was applying to Emory University, and they asked him, "What quartile of the class were you in?" Robert was the 4th of 4. And Bob said to him, "Well, Robert, just tell him you were 4th in your class." The school has always been a day school, and now has an enrollment of over 1,000 students, both boys and girls, in grades K through 12. I believe you play in lacrosse, do you? And you're passing back and forth the trophy. Who has it now? Well, that's a nice thing. Though they bear the same name, the 3 schools are not related. The only connection between them is that they were started by members of the same family, and that they share Old Stony's 3 founding principles: a thorough preparation for college, development of leadership skills, and emphasis on character development, exemplified by the Honor Code, which was verbalized with the pledge, "I will not lie, cheat, or steal." As Old Sonny would say, never do anything on the sly. You may know that the Honor Code has been adopted